Ojalá que las hojas no te toquen el cuerpo cuando caigan, para que no las puedas convertir en cristal. Ojalá que la lluvia deje de ser milagro que baja por tu cuerpo. Ojalá que la luna se vaya sin ti. Ojalá que la tierra no te bese los pasos. Ojalá se te acabe la mirada constante, la palabra precisa, la sonrisa perfecta. Ojalá pase algo que te borre de pronto, una luz cegadora, un disparo de nieve. Ojalá por lo menos que me lleve la muerte, para no verte tanto, para no verte siempre, en todos los segundos, en todas las visiones. Ojalá que no pueda tocarte ni en canciones. Ojalá que la aurora no dé gritos que caigan en mi espalda. Ojalá que tu nombre se le acabe el sabor. Ojalá las paredes no retengan el ruido de camino cansado. Ojalá que el deseo se vaya desde ti. A tu viejo gobierno de difuntos y flores. Ojalá se te acabe la mirada constante, la palabra precisa, la sonrisa perfecta. Ojalá pase algo que te muera de pronto, una luz cegadora, un disparo de nieve. Ojalá por lo menos que te vaya la muerte, para no verte tanto, para no verte siempre, en todos los segundos, en todas las visiones. Ojalá que no pueda tocarte ni en canciones. Ojalá pase algo que te borre de pronto, una luz cegadora, un disparo de nieve. Ojalá por lo menos que me lleve la muerte, para no verte tanto, para no verte siempre, en todos los segundos, en todas las visiones. Ojalá que no pueda tocarte ni en canciones. Ojalá pase algo que te borre de pronto, una luz cegadora, un disparo de nieve. Ojalá por lo menos que me lleve la muerte, para no verte tanto, para no verte siempre, en todos los segundos, en todas las visiones. Ojalá que no pueda tocarte ni en canciones. Ojalá por lo menos que me lleve la muerte, para no verte tanto, para no verte siempre, en todos los segundos, todas las visiones. Ojalá que no pueda tocarte ni en canciones. Ojalá con las manos que te vaya la muerte. Gracias. Gracias.
Buenos días, Madrid.
Good morning, Madrid.
Buenos días, España.
Good morning.
Europe.
Good morning.
Welcome to Madrid.
Welcome to the second day of the PES Congress, standing in the heart of Teatro Coliseum, in the heart of the Spanish socialist family. We are gathered to be united and we are gathered to move forward. And there is a lot of people following us, a lot of Europe on the stream, on Twitter, so be active and show that we are up for the European elections. And we are happy to be back again. My name is Johan Hassel, and I'm the International Secretary of the Swedish Social Democratic Party and member of the PES Presidium. And I'm here with
Laura Ballarín, a member of the PSC and PSOE. I'm from Barcelona. I'm really honored to be here with you again. This is a very important event. You know that we are in the second day of the PES Congress, and we are going to approve the manifesto for the next European elections. We are going to ratify our common candidate to the presidency of the European Commission, and we are also going to kick off the campaign for the European elections on the 26th of May, crucial elections.
And we are standing in the heart of a divided Europe. A Europe where populists is trying to exploit people's fear, social fears. We're looking at a divided, a polarized Europe where the right-wing extreme nationalism is gaining power. We have to remind ourselves and people, what is the foundations of Europe? What are we fighting for? Where are we? And we as progressive, we have a new momentum. We are the ones standing for hope. We are the ones tackling climate change. We're the one addressing social injustice. We are the one putting forward a progressive economic platform. And we are showing the leadership. We have the leaders that are steady and firm and that are ready to take the decisions, that are ready to face the electors and set a new direction for Europe. It is time for a new social contract, my friends.
So to open this second day, we welcome to the stage Sergei Stanishev, the president of the PS, Irache García, secretaria para Unión Europea del PSOE y primera vicepresidenta del PES, y Udo Bullmann, president of the S&D Group.
Buenos días, compañeras y compañeros. Buenos días, Madrid. Dear friends, I can feel your vibe, the vibe and energy of a strong campaign with a strong commitment for victory for the progressives in Europe. I would like to start by thanking Pedro Sanchez, not only for the warm hospitality which we all enjoy here in Spain, but mostly for what he is doing for Spain and for Europe in the last year. He took a risk to pull up Spain and the people of Spain out of desperation and give perspective and hope and recreate optimism. This is what our family is about. It's about optimism, giving better future. And that is what we shall be talking about today. We are very concerned by the Partido Popular in Spain and Ciudadanos for what they do, because they are ready for an unholy marriage with the devil. They are whitening the extreme right in Spain. We deeply believed that your country is somehow protected against this virus, against extreme nationalism. But we see that the right wing is recreating them, giving them credibility and legitimacy. And this is not acceptable for all progressives. Am I right? Last night, our leaders, thanks to the hospitality of Pedro, had the chance to see a great piece of art, which is speaking to the whole world, Guernica by Pablo Picasso. And we were standing there in front of this wonderful painting, hypnotized, but also terrified by the pain, by the yelling of human victims of a war. This is a warning to the whole world and to Europe, what we have and what can be lost. And we shall never forget the words of the great French president and the great socialist François Mitterrand, who said, once upon a time, nationalism is war. It may sound too strong, maybe, but this is a real threat. And you know, we have people from all over Europe here today, speaking different languages. But there is one Spanish phrase which every socialist, every progressive knows by heart. These are the words, no pasarán. No pasarán. We know that these elections will be, as France is saying, for the soul of Europe, which is so precious. And we know our mission, our responsibility. We shall not stand back to nationalism, and we shall not bow to the alliance of the EPP, of the traditional right, with the nationalists. Because I can tell you as a historian, this is not an opinion, this is a historical fact. Extreme right comes to power when the traditional right is taking their rhetorics, going to their space, and then brings them to power in order to stop socialists and progressives. This is what these elections will be about. And dear friends, we have a very strong manifesto elaborated together. This is not just empty words. This is a working plan for the future of Europe and our people. A Europe which is free, democratic, which is fair, which is solidary, which is just to the people, which is fighting inequality, and Europe which we believe in and which is progressive. We can win these elections. There are two conditions. We have to be united, but united on the basis of our values and principles and be coherent. And then we have to talk to people, to persuade them. We can do it together. So let's do it, starting from today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Sergei. Dear friends, it's time. It's our time. It's the time for more Europe. It's the time to rescue our project, our values, our dignity, and we will build a new social contract for Europe. For this reason, we are here. Por eso estamos aquí, amigos y amigas.
This is why we are here, my friends, because social democracy is Europe, and because Europe without social democracy is nothing. Because we share the values of solidarity, of cooperation, tolerance, diversity. This Europe which we work for on the platform of the rights of the left, commitment, building together the European social model, which was an example to follow by the rest of the world. And yes, it is true that this social European model, because of the way the crisis was handled, has been cast aside. And we see now how macroeconomic numbers did not devolve into turning people's lives into something better, which is why today the social democratic project is more necessary than ever before. A green Europe, which takes into account the sustainability of our lands, guaranteeing the future of our lands for future generations, striking a balance between urban and rural, being able to manage our territories. A feminist Europe, because without feminism, there will not be any Europe. We are going to say it loud and clear. Without feminism, there will be no Europe, because we are a half of Europe, because we are going to shout it out that we will not buckle under. We are not going to accept that anyone says to us in a parliament that we are less intelligent, that we are worth less than our colleagues. We are not going to abide by this. And we are not we are not going to allow for the far right and its partners and their votes, we're not going to allow them to build black lists of women. No, no, we will not allow for this. Please take note of all of the men and women who on March 8th are going to take to the streets of Europe to demand equal rights. Write it down. Write it down, black on white, every single one of us. And in full decency and in uprightness, we are going to work for a social Europe which will guarantee sustainability, the sustainability of public pension systems, a Europe which guarantees decent wages for the working class, a Europe which will truly be able to guarantee employment for our youth and future generations. And let me now take advantage of the little time I have to say a couple of things. First of all, thank you to the workers, men and women, who have made it possible for us to be here in this wonderful venue with this wonderful program. Thank you to the volunteers. Thank you to the activists who have done fantastic work for a long time, and I know they're going to continue to so do for a long time into the future. We have ahead of us months that are going to be passionate in Spain to again win the elections on April 28th so that Pedro Sánchez again be voted into power. And after that, with a socialist government firmly in place, we will continue to contribute in order to be successful in our European project. Decidedly, excitedly, committedly, engagedly, because this is the way we socialists go about our things. So go get it.
We have come to Madrid to start a social revolution. You can already smell it, you can feel it, you can hear it. A social revolution to save our planet, a social revolution to give our societies a decent future. The way we produce, the way we consume, destroys our soil and damages our health. All over Europe, young people take the streets calling on governments to act against climate change. We hear them, we listen to them, we talk to them, and we must act now. But my friends, we cannot ask only the ordinary people to shoulder the costs of the ecological transition. Whereas those, the rich and the super rich, avoid to pay any taxes. This is a scandal, and we, the socialists, are going to stop that, dear my friend. We fight for fair taxation, where everybody contributes a fair share, and companies pay taxes where they make their profits. Friends, you know very well, greed drove us into a deep economic and financial crisis 10 years ago. As a result, inequalities are still growing. At a time when social protection has been damaged by conservatives and liberals on austerity overdrive. 1 in 4 children is at risk of poverty. This is a shame, dear friends. We will stop that. We set out to make sure their basic needs are met. A bed to sleep in, 3 meals a day, a doctor when they are sick, and a school that provides them with a good education. This is our promise to our people, dear friends. The young generation must not be lost. It's the best educated generation we had ever. But it's shameful that they move from unpaid internship to unemployment to 0-hour contracts. This has to be stopped, dear friends. This is us that will be doing that. Parents are slaving away in 2 jobs, taking home 1,000 euros at the end of the month, and do not know how they can pay their mortgages. This is not the Europe we want. This is to be stopped, dear friends. We socialists want a different Europe, a new social contract where everybody finds his and her place and where everybody can contribute to the welfare of the respective societies. We want Europe to be free, fair, and sustainable. And this change is today starting in Madrid, with Pedro and the PSOE as the strongest force after the next election in April. And nobody will stop him. Nobody will stop PSOE, not the conservative PP and the liberal Ciudadanos who walk arm in arm with the neo-fascists in Andalusia and take the streets in Spain. No pasarán. They cannot do it, dear friends. Our socialist group in the European Parliament will ask Manfred Weber and Guy Verhofstadt, what is your comment on your friends going arm in arm with the neo-fascists in Spain? This is a shame. We will not allow them doing that. We will ask them. They have to justify for this behavior, dear friends. And this is our promise as socialist group to our party. We will fight for this radical change in the manifesto. It starts here in Madrid. It starts with Pedro Sanchez. It starts with Franz Timmermans. Franz, you were spearheading our fight for our values. You are the one in the front line for a free Europe. You spoke about our values. You were fighting for our values wherever you went during your time as commissioner. And we will continue to fight with you for a sustainable Europe. You are the right person, and you have the full backing of the Socialist Group in the European Parliament. You are going to be the next Commission's president, dear Franz. We came to Madrid to unite behind our common manifesto. We are giving power to the people and progress for the many, for a truly fair and responsible society, built on respect for the planet and built on the respect for each and every person. Join our social revolution today. Join our fight to save the planet. Today we start this fight. Venceremos, compañeros y compañeras.
European leaders to our local leaders. The next panel discussion is still about Europe and our doorstep, the local dimension of integration. And when we really think about it, all politics is local. And elaborating on that, you will see that local communities is where we organize. That's where people meet their welfare, education, life chances grow. But that is also where people meet with different diversities, different cultures, and that's where the possibility is to actually integrate and meet and face the challenges that is up front in Europe today. So we have a great panel of a lot of majors, which is the local leaders.
Yes, so we are happy to welcome to the stage Corina Cretu, European Commissioner for Regional Policy, Yorgos Kaminis, Mayor of Athens since 2011,
Helene Fritzon, former mayor of Kristianstad in the Malmö region, former Minister of Migration, and the leading candidate for the Swedish European Parliament. And we also have Robert Bieron, the man that is bringing a new spring to Poland, showing that Europe, social democracy, is alive in all parts, taking the next step for our movement.
and Jaume Collboni, futur alcalde de Barcelona. So, dear Corina, you've been traveling all around Europe in the past 5 years, every single country, every single corner, to work, to know one of the main pillars of the European project, which is integration, which is cohesion. So from your perspective, which are the main challenges that this policy has and for the next years? Thank you.
So, buenos dias, Madrid, dear France, dear Prime Minister, Pedro, Stefan, Viorica, dear Antonio, we all work together. And as you said, I had the privilege in the last 5 years to be in hundreds of regions since the beginning of my mandate as a Commissioner for Regional Policies. I have been in the cities, in the rural areas, in the islands and in the mountains, meeting project managers, local and regional actors. In Italy, after the earthquake, we were there as European Commission. We were after the fires in Madeira and here in Portugal. Also, we had we changed the regulation in Greece. And we helped with the migration crisis, with terrorism, with helps. So I would like to tell you, to all that look at us as a bureaucrats, Europe is not in Brussels. Europe is here at the local level. You are Europeans. We work for you. And I know that we are in the 7th years of the consecutive economic growth, but we know that inequalities are still here and the discontent is still spread out. And this is our duty, to be closer to the citizens. And day by day, we work at the Commission, with the European Parliament, with our friends in all local regions, with our mayors. We have to be close to the citizens. Last week I was in Olympia, in Greece, and now I'm here. I am in every corner, and we are in every corner. France is in every corner, and we will win because we will show that we are close to the people, and we understand that they are poor, and they want us to be as humble of them. Thank you very much.
So, Yorgos, as mayor of Athens, you've had to deal with some of the most severe crises, one piling on top of the other: economic crisis, social crisis, refugee crisis, democracy crisis with the rise of the far right. So my question is simple. As mayor, how did you manage? How did you work for integration in these most difficult circumstances?
Yes. Voy a intentar hablar.
Very good. I'm going to try to speak in Spanish because I spent 2 of the best years of my life here in Madrid. So, first and foremost, governments defend borders. We, in the cities, are accountable for integration. 60% at least of refugees live in cities. Therefore, it is up to us to do the work, and this is very important. We need to remember. And to do it well, we need to work, we need to fight against ignorance. Ignorance is our worst enemy. So, we have got to explain clearly to people what is happening. Visit the neighborhoods, explain what is going on, explain these persons, these immigrants, these refugees, they are not a threat. No, they are good for our societies. So we, with regards civil society, now we are working on a European project which is financed by the IRPF, the Urban Initiatives Actions. We are working, the International Rescue Services, the Catholic Services Relief, and Greek universities are working, joining forces to make jobs available to immigrants, but with special groups in the neighborhoods working hard to improve the quality of life in the city. So they receive housing, they are taught English, and they are given job counseling. This is an idea. This is a very important project for Athens, and I think that the experience is going to be very valuable for the rest of Europe. So we shall overcome.
Helene, you have both experience as a minister in the government for migration and as a local mayor dealing with integration. What is the experience you take with you and what are the lessons for Europe?
Thank you very much. And Prime Ministers and dear friends, yes, I have three important perspectives with me in all political areas. I have the local, the national, and now also the international perspective. It is actually so that it belongs together. We want to build a strong society. I'm very proud to be here today to talk about the local level, the level at which we meet our citizens and voters in reality. I'm also very proud to represent a country, Sweden, where after the election we succeeded in keeping the right-wing extremist forces away and where Social Democrats party leader we have our party leader, our Prime Minister Stefan Löfven here today. And we can see that all politics is about both challenges and opportunities. And as a mayor in 2015, I was involved in responsibility for one of Europe's largest refugee crises. Sweden received the highest level of refugees in relation to its population, and my city was among the cities that took most. We worked hard to welcome refugees with housing and support and facilities. And today we work very hard. We are focused for the new arrivals, learning Swedish, getting to work in education, and that the children are going to preschool and school. It's an important work. Some must be done. We are going to build houses in the whole Sweden, in the whole country. So we work actively with integration. In the multicultural town next to my town in Malmö, it's crucial by sustainability. It's about economic, ecological, and social sustainability. Building sustainability cities is important for meeting the future, and we must build it with fair societies. We must listen to the young people. I hope you have heard about Greta. Yes. She is wonderful. She has become a voice for all young people. And I must say, as a former minister for migration, we must resolve the issue of a common asylum system as soon as possible. Yes, and we must do it together. And I must tell you, I am very proud. In Sweden, we not only have a social democratic-led government, we also have a feministic government. As our foreign minister, Margot Wallström, you know her, she always says, we must continue our efforts to ensure that women enjoy the same rights, the same resources, and the same representation as men. And we must fight for women, for children, and for our citizens in Europe. So from a Swedish point of view, I will underline the importance of a sustainable Europe that protects our planet and a feminist Europe with equal rights for all of us. We can make it together. Thank you.
Robert, the battle on values in Europe is on place in Poland today. So you are one of the most known people in Poland for your successful and your standing as a local mayor. So what is at stake in Poland and how does that contemplate in Europe?
Yeah, good question. Hola Madrid, hola España, hola Europa.
Hello Madrid, hello Spain, hello Europe.
I come I come from a country where we still have winter. It's very, very cold. But the spring is coming, not only concerning the climate, but also the political spring. It will come soon to whole Europe, not only to Madrid, not only to Portugal, not only to Sweden, but to whole Europe. And we feel that. If you close your eyes, you imagine Poland, you imagine a country which is conservative, which is close to Russia, where white bears like in Sweden are on the streets, but that's a stereotype. I'm gay, I'm atheist, and I come from a very conservative country. And for a long time in my country, I have heard that you won't change anything. This is a Catholic, conservative country. But I did not believe them. I have felt that we are also open, diverse, and tolerant country because we were fighting for that for many years, that we will be a democratic community, that the rule of law, human rights will finally, like they have come to so many countries in Europe, they will come also to Central and Eastern Europe. And here I stand today in front of you, not only as a successful mayor, not only as a successful MP, but also as a leader of a new successful Polish party called Spring. The Spring has come to Poland, finally. And this is a hope. This is a hope for whole Central and Eastern Europe. Whole Central and Eastern Europe, where a symbol is solidarity. Because I also come from a country of Lech Walesa, a beautiful hero fighting for independence in Central and Eastern Europe, because solidarity is not only our symbol, it's also an everyday story. And we need this solidarity in whole Europe. And I count the days for European elections, for our success, that progressive Europe will come everywhere, in every corner of European community. It has come already to some of the countries. Now it's time that we, united together, will bring wings of hope, of progress, of tolerance, of openness to whole Europe. Thank you very much.
Jaume, las ciudades están dando la batalla.
Jaume, cities are fighting the battle against populism and extremism. And also in your country, cities are facing this challenge. So what's your recipe for Barcelona to go back to its global position and potential?
Hay un dicho que dice que
There's a saying that goes as follows: the air of cities makes us free. It's a medieval saying that was used during medieval times in Europe. Now in Europe and the world over, we're still fighting against those who want to close our societies, those who are afraid of differences, those who base their political projects on identity. And we're going to fight hard. We propose progressive, open cities, solidarian cities, fair cities. Very strange things are happening here in Spain. As strange as the fact that in Spain, conservatives don't fight against the far right, but against us progressives. We social democrats and socialists have always defended the European dream, a dream built on the alliance and cooperation between big cities, a European dream based on cohesion, security, etc. Those things that our citizens miss today. They feel unsafe, insecure, they feel bad, they feel badly treated. Our political movement in the whole of Europe, what big cities in Europe are doing, and what we do in cities where we rule is exactly the opposite. To fight Salvini's European skepticism, we're going to propose more Europe. Against homophobia, we're going to propose more rights. And to fight ignorance, as the mayor of Athens said, we're going to promote more culture in our cities. We're going to fight against fear with more hope, that hope that will come from social democracy and socialism. And we will achieve this by winning the elections in May. We cities are the ones where you can find all the contradictions of globalization, but it is also in cities where you find all the solutions. To fight climate change, we have sustainable transport. Against ignorance, we have free universal education from 3 years on. To fight against the fears of old people who live alone in big cities, we're going to propose more public services, more assistance for dependencies. We're going to do this in all the big cities. And to fight against intolerance, we're going to remind Europe and the world where the workers' movement started, where feminism started, where the gay liberation movement started. And it was in the great European cities. One of them, and I say this very proudly, is Barcelona. So thank you very much, dear comrades.
Thank you very much. Y ahora os quiero presentar a...
Now I'd like to introduce the band, Alejo Stivel and his band, who played a song called Ojalá, and now they're going to play a song about sexist violence, male chauvinism, a drama that we all must fight together because we all want women to stay alive.
El día que te vayan a violar, no te pongas minifalda y cuídate bien de llevar bien tapadita la espalda. No camines por calles vacías, no pidas fuego en ninguna esquina, no hables con nadie, no mires a nadie el día que te vayan a violar. Tu novio, tu exnovio, tu marido, el amigo de tu amiga, tu compañero de trabajo, tu jefe o alguien de tu propia familia. Ni una menos, ni una más, ni una menos, ni una más. El silencio, el miedo y la complicidad. Ni una menos, ni una más. La noche que te vayan a matar, no digas soy feminista, porque te va a acusar toda la prensa sexista. El patriarcado asesino fabrica machismo y malas maneras, una violencia invisible, Juanas de Arco y hogueras. Tu novio, tu exnovio, tu marido, el amigo de tu amiga, tu compañero de trabajo, tu jefe o alguien de tu propia familia. compañero de trabajo o tu jefe, o alguien de tu propia familia. Ni una menos, ni una más, ni una menos, ni una más. El silencio, el miedo y la complicidad. Ni una menos, ni una más. Ni una menos, ni una más. Ni una menos, ni una más. El silencio, el miedo y la complicidad. Ni una menos, ni una más. Ni una menos, ni una más. Ni una menos, ni una más. El silencio, el miedo y la complicidad. Ni una menos, ni una más. Gracias.
Y después de esta potente canción, vamos a dar paso.
After this wonderful song, we now are going to address the issue of civil society. 3 persons who come from outside of our party, because we believe it's important to heed those who are outside, learn from them, take advantage of their energy. We have with us 3 speakers who defend 3 causes that we defend: feminism, environmentalism, and social justice. So welcome, please, welcome Zua Mendez, activist who speaks on behalf of Towanda rebels.
To save the planet and our oceans.
Y en tercer lugar, Andrés Conde, director ejecutivo de Save the...
And finally, Andrés Conde, Save the Children, Spain.
Empieza tú, Zua.
Zua, please. Thank you for inviting us. We have a lot to say, and I don't want to take up too much of your time. We at Towanda Rebels, but women all over the world, have woken up from a lie, the lie that we were equal. Perhaps in Spain it's so legally, but not in reality. We know because we live surrounded by violence, and we see that our historical references are invisible. We don't have education in feminist values. We do not know the great names in history. And this is unfair because we are 1/2 of the population. We deserve 1/2 of everything. Malala said that there are few things that are more powerful than a girl with a book. And that is what people know who try to hush us up, who try to stop us from fighting. We in this country have had to hear presidents say, let's not get into that when they talk about the divide between men and women. We have got to make sure that the system, which is unbearable in economic terms, can only be borne because we work for free, we work invisibly, we do the things that society doesn't want to see us doing. We live in a country in which even now, we have not had one single woman candidate to the presidency. That is a glass ceiling. The numbers are there. The numbers speak out loud, even if the people in Vox say that's not the case. When we talk about terrorism, gender-based terrorism, we see that women are killed in Spain, but there's mistreatment, abuse, institutional abuse that we women are subject to is not bearable. How is it possible that we continue to hear rulings that say we should keep our knees together? Do we consent or not? Did I really mean it? And certainly, we have got to stop asking of women to consent. We do not want to consent. Men are not asked, do you consent? Men desire. Well, we women also desire. We desire to be equal. We desire to be taken on an equal footing. How is it possible that today we are talking about this. Why is it that after 300 years of fighting, feminism finally makes it into the spotlight? Well, it is thanks to what is most revolutionary of all, which is speaking out loud. Millions of women the world over have shouted out, have shared our stories, and have discovered something that we suspected, which is that history does not belong to us, because women of all races, of all classes, repeat, "This is my story as well. Me too, me too, me too." We do not want to have to explain why we've lived. When we talk about violence, sexual violence, it's not only rape, it's abuse, it's harassment, an issue which nobody seems to want to address. Our bodies as goods to be used. This is something that needs to be addressed. Because we are not here to have our reproductive rights be debated. It was hard going. Our sisters in Latin America are proving with their green kerchief every day that we need free abortion because we women have the right to choose. And no, we are not going to stop asking, demanding to begin to procreate as some would have so that pensions be paid. Pensions that have been snatched from our hands. There is nothing that can be more feminist than a woman saying, "I believe you, sister. I am with you," not birthing for the wealthy. No, Mr. Rivera, that is not feminism. Women, girls the world over suffer the ongoing becoming things. We are there to please. We are there to satisfy. We are there to be desirable. We don't want to be sold in bits and pieces as prostitutes in order to say that thus the desires and not the rights, because it is a desire to be a father, and that cannot be legitimated by money. All of that, women being, as the IMF says, the countries in the third world, if you do not have women, if you do not have raw material, rather you have women, well, you can do whatever you will with them. Use them. In Thailand, they do that. They've sacrificed an entire generation of women in the defense of neoliberalism. Enough already. We are not objects. We cannot be packed up in bits and pieces. We are not here, and it's embarrassing. We do not want to have this reality thrust upon us, prostitution and home help. And please, how lucky am I to be here among socialists to speak out and say thank you to the countries who have stepped ahead of us, clearing the way. Thank you to Scandinavia. Thank you, because thus today we can speak and dream so that abolitionism become a fact of our lives in Spain. We cannot talk about free choice when women live attacked by the structural violence of a paternalistic society. How can we say that women are free to be prostituted? All of the violence that we have rejected, and this is the space that racism occupies, classism occupies. We've got to forget about that being sex. The most powerful tool of all is education, and we need an education that is not equalitarian, but feminist. What is most important when we talk about sex is not penetration. It is not about consent. No, what matters, what is essential, is to have desire. Desire. Both parties desiring whenever we want, however we want it. Why? Because the Scandinavian law has a name which I believe is the best. It is called the law of peace, because we women live the war of our bodies. We've got to stop this war. Politicians, the guilty, please, no more debate. Do women have the right or not to be prostitutes? Do we want or do we not want to be wombs for hire? Why do men believe that they have the possibility of buying us and of accessing our countries? Let's talk about pimps. Let's talk about the guys who go whoring. Let's say that, as Kasia X-Segment said, nothing bad is going to happen to the rest of the world if women's bodies are no longer taken as something to trade. It is a source of sadness that is going to disappear. Thank you all.
Merintinga, you are the plastic soup surfer trying to save the environment, our oceans, and stopping the pollution and the plastics in it. So, surfing and stopping climate change. Please tell me all about it.
Thank you. No hablo español.
I don't speak any Spanish.
Walking over here from the hotel just to the teatro, I found this plastic bottle. Did you know that in Spain, 13 million plastic bottles are sold each day? 13 million. And just like in the Netherlands, a proportion of that is littered. Finds its way to the Spanish streets, parks, waterways, rivers, beaches, and some of it eventually ends up in our oceans, never to be recovered. When there is an instrument, it's called deposit fee. Tested, proved, when you buy your bottle, you pay a little extra, say 20 cents, and when you bring your bottle back after finishing your beverage, you get your 20 cents back, no littering. Just as in Spain, we don't have deposits on small plastic bottles. So what I did, see if it starts, I built a surfboard from 60 of these plastic bottles. And I surfed that from my local beach, Scheveningen, all the way across the North Sea to England, 200 kilometers. Now, I did not do that. No. I only have little time, please. I did not do that because I wanted because I wanted a line in the Guinness Book of World Records. I did that because I wanted deposit fee. And I started a petition to get deposits in the Netherlands, only small plastic bottles. I got 60,000 signatures, and I presented those to Parliament. Coincidentally, it was Valentine's Day, so I presented 60,000 sugar hearts. This is only 5,000 of those. But I did something else, something sly and cunning. I wrote my own resolution, wrote it myself, using the same formal language they use in Parliament, and I stated, we want 90% less littered plastic bottles, 90% less within 3 years, which means deposit fee. Now, I presented that, and the amazing thing, all the politicians there signed my resolution. The next day, it got adopted by Parliament. A year later, that same resolution, which was called the Plastic Soup Surfer Resolution, was used as the basis for new policy in the Netherlands to get deposit fee on small plastic bottles within 2 years. 2021, we will have plastic deposits in the Netherlands. Now, this was last March. And the same day, coincidentally, that the State Secretary presented that new policy, I got to meet Frans Timmermans at a big EU event in the Netherlands. And I told him, what about plastic, what about deposits in Europe? And he said, well, come over to Brussels and we'll talk about it. This was this very moment. This is where we're talking about deposits, and this is two months before the Single-Use Plastics Directive came out. And he was telling me that he was working on legislation to get deposits for the whole entire of Europe. And I was like, wow, you know, I'm trying to do this for the Netherlands. He's doing it for the entire Europe. I was like, you know, France is the super plastic soup surfer. I don't know, Frans, have you ever surfed? No? Probably fall off the board when you try. I'll give you a lesson, But let me tell you, let me share with you why it is so important. Why it is so important to have people like Frans back us up. For 70 years, since the 50s, when single-use plastics were introduced, the view of the industry and of retail has dominated the way we should handle plastics as a society. They have been telling us that it is the consumers which are responsible for the end of life of their products. It is them telling us that cleaning up the pollution is the only solution. And this results in 8 billion kilos of plastic pollution spilling into our oceans each year already, because they are investing, at this moment, investing heavily, and the plastic production will increase another fourfold within the next 10 years, 4 times more plastic production each year. That's what we're fighting against. That's why we need regulation. That's why we need policy. That's why we need strong leadership at the highest levels. Now, but what is our answer? What is our answer to that view, that industry frame? Well, I brought together 130, just 2 weeks ago, I brought together 130 of the Dutch specialists and plastic warriors, and we called ourselves the Plastic Avengers. The Plastic Avengers, like the comic book heroes, you know? We're fighting this plastics. And then I challenged them to come up with that view, that new vision, that new approach, a sustainable approach to plastics. And we wrote it down in a little booklet, also a manifest. And you might appreciate the color while I'm here, you know, a red color, but you'll also appreciate the contents. And I know Frans will appreciate that. I'll finish it here. I was asked, next time Frans will come to the Netherlands, we as the Avengers, all 130, wanted to present this to Frans. But since he's only 5 meters away from me, I'll present it to him straight away. Thank you very much, because to me, he is a plastic Avenger.
Y ahora es el turno de Andrés Conde, el director ejecutivo de Save the Children España, una organización que trabaja día a día para luchar contra la pobreza infantil, una prioridad del gobierno de Pedro Sánchez. Así que, por favor, tienes la palabra.
Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you very much.
Yo quiero hablarles en 5 minutos de...
Let me talk, just 5 minutes, let me talk about 3 issues. I'm going to pose 3 very uncomfortable questions, and I'm going to ask you for 3 commitments. As Social Democrats, 3 commitments into the future. First, poverty and inequality. It couldn't be otherwise. There's no doubt in anyone's minds that the European Union is an economic project. But question number 1 is it really a social project as well? In our discourse, yes, but in real life, is it a social project? The European Union has been so forceful in implementing fiscal adjustment measures, but what about that same determination when the issue was protecting the vulnerables, the have-nots, the victims of the crisis? The European Union has really gone overboard in researching monetary stability, yes, but it has paid quite a bill in terms of social cohesion. Inequality, for sure, is the great forgotten in caps. Poverty and inequality stem from childhood, and we know that this is so. And they last the whole life through. In Europe, there are 25 million boys and girls who live in poverty. who run the risk of exclusion. 700,000 children more before the crisis. And it is essential to remember that in Spain, this problem is even more serious than elsewhere. 2020 strategy had as one of its objectives reducing by 20 million the number of persons who in Spain lived in poverty. 2 years after the signature of that strategy, nothing has changed. The number of persons living in poverty is not less than what it was, and we run the risk of not complying on our objective for 2020. Whereas monetary policy has very clear, strict, binding rules for member states, budgets are supervised, public debt, deficit are deeply studied by the Union. After the devastating years of the crisis, we have only achieved, from a social point of view, signing a European pillar of social rights, which is a political declaration and is not binding. We could progress, we could be just as disciplined, just as forceful with regards to our monetary policies in those areas that are social, which are shared, which are common to all in Europe. Poverty, dropping out of school, social inequality. The welfare state, social protection, this is the beating heart of social democracy. And thanks to social democracy, we've got the basics of the establishment of the European Union. The upcoming elections are an outstanding alternative, a great opportunity to really do our most for a true social Europe, not only an economic Europe, acknowledging the rights that pertain to all of the citizens, but especially those who are more at stake, more vulnerable. Second issue, migrations. There is no doubt that this is going to be very much a part of the campaign that kicks off today, because other forces are going to wave the flag of fear. This is definitely going to be an issue. They're going to be using migration as the scapegoat to explain the decadence of welfare states in Europe in general. Most of the time, they'll do it, and they will be using false argumentation. My question is, can social democracy offer an alternative discourse? Because there is a lack of an alternative discourse, or at least that's how we see it from outside of your family. Let's talk about migration. Europe is about to lose some 25 million in 2050 because of the demographics. We're getting older. Spain, again, is one of the countries that is a leader here. We have the lowest birth rate since 1941, our current birth rate. And something else, 1% of inbound into our country, into Europe, only 1% are illegal. Only 1% of aliens are illegal. 99% of the aliens coming in are perfectly regularized. And in Europe, it's the lowest as of 2015. So perhaps we could say that these are good times to come up with a better, different migratory policy. However, 90% of the persons who have been granted asylum by the European Union arrived via irregular mechanisms, because there are no safe ways into the country for those persons who flee persecution. In recent times, a country such as Spain has been able to welcome 5 million immigrants, most at work right now, and some of them in jobs that are very, very sensitive. They care for our children, they care for our elderly, they help us at home. Migration are a challenge for Europe, but the European Union does not have a common migratory policy. It manages borders. That is a different story. We need a migratory policy that is responsible, sustainable, efficient, that manages the mobility of people, because this is going to continue to exist, and that aims to contribute economically and socially to the Union. We need for social democracy to offer in Europe a migratory discourse that is different, with those specificities of sustainability, accountability, and that social democracy be de facto a line of defense, a bulwark for the defense of those human rights which have been so long in the achieving. And the third issue which might be surprising because it's not that much discussed, Save the Children was born 100 years ago to help the victims of World War I. Ever since then, we've been working in armed conflicts, Syria, Yemen, CDR, and other spaces of intense violence. In every part of the world, per soldier dead, 5 children lose their lives. As our founder said 100 years ago, every war is a war on children, boys and girls alike. 90% of migratory flows coming into Europe are pushed because of armed violence. 90% of the persons arriving comes to us fleeing war. However, the weapons used in some of those wars are manufactured and sold by European countries. My question, do we really need to do this? Are there really no economic alternatives? I mean, I understand that there's people whose livelihoods depends on building weapons and selling weapons, but can Europe really afford to be co-responsible, co-accountable for conflicts such as the one raging in Yemen? The weapons used in Yemen are being sold by European countries. Limiting the sale of arms and weapons is not going to happen because member states decide, but it may well happen if there is a concerted effort carried out by European countries, and only social democracy will foster an event of this nature, which would save so many, many lives. And at the end of the day, these times are times of difficult agreements. These times are times of wall building, fence building. I ask you to defend walls that have taken decades to build. The wall of human rights, social democracy is essential in the defense of that wall. These walls are critical for the future of Europe. Thank you very much.
Gracias. Gracias.
Thank you.
It is now time for our leaders, our prime ministers and party leaders, who every day is facing those challenges within inside of Europe, who have the responsibility for sending out a direction, to lead in a very uncertain time, to deliver on the progress that we all want, on the social contract. It is time for us Social Democrats and Socialists to lead a change. And we are happy to have with us Stefan Löfven, the Social Democratic Party leader and Prime Minister of Sweden.
Andrea Nales. Andrea Nales, leader of SPD. You're coming?
And Pamela Rende-Wagner. Let's give them a big applause so they don't hide, so they're not shy.
And Antonio Costa.
Hey! Hey! So, Stefan, you're a man from up north, a trade unionist, and we just won the elections, and we have delivered a bit on the social chapters. But what is it that you see looking out in Europe? What is it that we need to move forward on as socialists and as progressives?
Thank you. First, hola. Buenos dias.
Good morning.
This is all I can. I can also cerveza. I know. If we're about to summarize what we're doing, what we're facing in this campaign that we're entering, or the daily work that we're doing in our party, in our different countries, I would like to summarize it like this. The European Union do not exist for some market. The European Union exists for the people. For the people. We need to put the citizens in the center, making sure that politics can deliver, deal with the citizens' daily problems, and offer a future that is positive, that is bright. That was what we did also in Sweden after the election last fall. We had a very complicated result, 2 blocks, risking that an extremist party would stand in the middle and have the saying, the crucial saying in Sweden politics. We needed to avoid that. So 4 parties that are not used to cooperate did cooperate, and we found a solution. We reached out over the traditional political boundaries, and said we need to find a compromise because we need to stand up for a decent society. We want to stand on the right side of the history. We want to stand up for human rights, the rule of law, independent media and academia. This is what we stand up for. And in doing so, we need to stop the extremists. Just like Sergei said, no pasarán. Because we do so. So what we did was that we showed, yes, we can handle also difficult political situations. We can reach a compromise that shows the people, yes, we are investing in jobs, in training, in education for our children, for our youth, in better elderly care, in stronger health care, better pensions for our retirees, and so on, showing also that the whole country would prosper from this politics. And we also show that we could deliver, and we show we can do this, and we're not giving the crucial power to extremists, never. Now we have a similar situation in Europe. We all know that we are challenged, our values are challenged in different countries on our continent. So now it's time for us to do this again, to stand up and show the population, no, the extremists, the nationalists, they do not have the answer because they build their policy on putting people against people. We will never tolerate that. We will build a Europe on solidarity, on equal rights. And that is why we also need to show that we handle the citizens' daily challenges. That also in the EU cooperation, we will create more jobs. We will also make sure that those jobs are decent jobs, good jobs, decent wages, a safe labor market. We will deal with the climate change because we need to tell our children and our grandchildren that we understood the serious situation and we did something about it. So the EU must lead the way to fulfill the Paris Agreement. That's what we want to do, reduce pollution and make sure that we have a safe world. We also want to address the issue of gender equality. Once and for all, women and men must enjoy the same rights, the same possibilities. That is why I'm so proud to lead a feminist government in Sweden. Because this is the right thing to do. It is morally right, but it's also economically smart Do you know that if women would have the same employment rate as men, we would have a GDP that is 12% bigger? 12%. 12%. That's a lot to distribute. So let us now show the social democratic path for a European Union that is built on solidarity, equal rights, and human rights. And with doing so, also showing no extremists, you don't have a saying in this. This is a totally different society that we are building. Thank you.
Thank you, Stefan. Andrea, you are the first female leader of SPD, the oldest party in Europe, and always a reference for the whole family. Andrea, the 80% of the Germans are in favor of the European Union. How do you think this factor, this big support, will help to mobilize in the next European elections?
Yes, thank you. Buenos dias. 80% of the Germans are in favor of the European Union. Why shouldn't we? Because the Germans trust. They trust in this way of life. They trust in the power of freedom. They trust in the power of peace. My daughter is now 8 years. She comes 2 weeks ago from school and asked me, was there really a wall in Germany? She couldn't imagine. Yes, exactly 30 years ago, there had been a wall. And this wall came down because of the people and because they trust Europe. That was the main reason for coming down of the wall. And then we know yet that there are people in Europe, populist, right-wing people, they build new walls all over Europe, not built out of stone, but of racism, chauvinism, and of hate. And we, the social democratic family, we won't allow to build new walls in Europe or all over the world. We are against it. Put down the walls. But I must admit, 80% of the Germans are in favor of the European Union, but only 49 are planning to go to vote. And why is that? Most of the people see Europe as an economic power, but they don't have yet the feeling this is a Europe for themselves, for their human right, for their labor right. For example, they see in Germany an actual situation that when they want people their right, then they won't build up voices for themselves. For example, there are companies who use another country and avoid the human right, and they avoid strikes, and they avoid the power of work. And therefore, we have to build up more right for our people, more right, more social rights in Europe. That is the point. We brought a new social Europe. And I agree fully with Stefan, because I think this will be building new trust. We need new trust for Europe with another inner structure. And I think there is a question of inequality. And I must say, when there are companies who make profit here in Europe, they have to pay taxes. And when they don't pay taxes, they should not be allowed to make profits. This is another question we have to address as social democratic family in Europe. And it took the Social Democratic Party 156 years to vote for a woman, which is not so very flattering, really. But now I am here. So, and on the other side, I just want to say, we have 100 years of voting women in Germany, we celebrated. But it is also, we can see it's all over Europe a rollback for women's rights. And therefore we need a strong social democratic family in the European Parliament and in the Commission. We want the half of the world. Half is us for the female power in Europe. We need social democratic power. Thank you.
Danke, Andrea. Antonio?
Antonio, an inspiration, an example to follow for the entire family over the past 3.5 years. What do you think Europe should do in order to be more fair and more social? A Europe that is more similar to what the socialists have achieved and will continue to achieve in Portugal.
Chers camarades, caras y caros compañeros, voy a intentar hablarlos.
I will try to speak Spanish. Or at least a mixture of Spanish and Portuguese. These elections provide us with a historical framework for Europe. These are the first elections where the first girls and boys who were born in the 21st century will be allowed to vote. These are the elections of citizens of the 21st century. And this means that these upcoming elections will also be about the future of new generations. So it is for this reason that we need a new social contract, a social contract that opens up new opportunities, that opens doors and hopes for this new generation. The hope that they will have access to the best education. The hope that they'll be able to find a job, but a fair job, a decent job, with good work-life balance.
Que pueden también.
The hope that they will also be free to create a family the way they want. Because in our cities, in our towns, they will have access to decent housing in equal conditions, just like we did, and just like we were able to build our own families. These upcoming elections are also a battle between hope and fear. Fear that is being promoted by populism, which undermines democracy. Fear promoted by nationalism and which threatens peace. Fear that makes protectionism grow, that compromises economic growth and better and more job creation. Fear that the force of chauvinism and racism will prevail, just the opposite of the values that have made Europe the home of peace, democracy, freedom, economic prosperity, social justice, etc. All those values represented by us. No. A strong Europe in the world cannot be created by turning the Mediterranean Sea into a cemetery of human beings. A strong Europe is that Europe that Vasco da Gama and Christopher Columbus envisaged, that Magallanes and Elcano started by facing the unknown, by overcoming their fear of the sea, opening new horizons, and starting the great first globalization, turning the seas into a meeting place for cultures, peoples, civilizations, and which has given rise to this Europe where freedom, justice are the values that prevail. These elections are about the future, but we should never forget history and its tragic dimension, the tragic dimension of war, dictatorship, poverty. The Europe that Mario Suarez and Felipe Gonzalez dreamed of the Europe before the euro, before it became a market-oriented Europe, before that it was a Europe of values. And that's the kind of Europe we want to build, because that's the Europe that has a future. And that is why we have to focus on the hopes and desires and meeting the needs of our citizens, because we have to fight against climate change. We need to invest more in innovation. We have to ensure fiscal justice for small and medium-sized companies that compete against big multinationals that don't pay taxes, neither in Europe nor anywhere else. And we also need to face the great challenge that we socialists have always had to fight, namely inequality. And the most profound inequality, which is gender equality. That should be our first fight. But we must also face regional inequalities. That is why we must have a Europe of cohesion with a reformed euro that brings prosperity to all and not just a few. We must also fight against social inequalities that persist in our societies. And there can be no decent Europe with poverty. We have to eradicate poverty from our continent. That's the reason why we must give certainty to our citizens. This is a time of change, technological change, but we have to reassure everyone, telling them that no one's gonna lay behind or stay behind. Other people may want to take our jobs, but we're going to do our best to create a more dynamic, freer economy that is better for all of us and for the future of all of our citizens. And to conclude, I think we must be very clear here. None of the big challenges we face can be better solved outside of Europe and without Europe. It is only in Europe, with Europe, that we'll be able to overcome those challenges. We all need a manual of resilience, like the book Pedro Sanchez wrote. We all need to say no pasarán. But we also need something else. We need something else. I will visit tomorrow the tombstone of a great Spanish poet, Antonio Machado. Machado didn't say no pasarán. He wrote something very important, though. He said that you build the road as you walk. Or in other words, walk the talk. What's important is not just to walk. You have to know where you're going. What's your destination? And that is why, apart from a manual of resilience, we also need a manual to propose a social contract for a fairer, freer, more sustainable Europe. That is the Europe of the future. Dear comrades, European elections are extremely important. We have to win those elections in all countries, but also here in Spain. We must have a big Spanish delegation in European Parliament. But please don't forget that Spanish citizens will not only be electing members of the European Parliament, they will also be electing representatives of Spain in the European Council. And the vote on the 28th of April are even more important than the European elections. Because in the European Parliament, Portuguese, German, Swedish members can compensate for those countries that have fewer members. But in the Council, each country has a vote, and we need Pedro Sanchez to have that vote representing Spain, because without Pedro Sanchez, there's no future for Europe. Long live Europe. Long live European socialism. Let's win on the 28th of April and on the 26th of May. Pedro, we expect to see you in the European Council. Please, let's work together. Good luck, Pedro, good luck. Zoe, together we'll win.
Pamela from Central Europe, elected party leader since the fall. You're also the first party leader. You're a doctor, you're a former minister of health and social affairs. And what is the change that Europe needs? What is the change you see you're going to bring?
Well, muchas gracias. I think you got the order right. I think Antonio really should have been the final speaker of our panel. I mean, wow. Well, muchas gracias y buenos días, amigas.
Thank you very much. Good morning, all. And dear Predo, thank you so very much for the very warm welcome here in Madrid. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, there's really not to add. There is actually nothing to add, Antonio, Stefan, Andrea. But dear friends, it's no secret that Europe is under growing threat. It's a threat we feel inside our countries, a threat we feel in Brussels, a threat we feel all over Europe. And even if we look outside Europe, we can really feel this threat coming from outside to our continent. And therefore, we are all very much sure that this upcoming election is more decisive than any other before. The question is if we continue in the European Union we know now, or if we're facing a change to the worse. And you all know that this upcoming election means it is now that we, as we are here today, we have to make this right decision, and we have to save this Europe. We have to save, yes, I know you're tired from clapping now. We have to save it from those who always put their countries first and completely ignoring European integrity. And we have to save it from those who are destroying, and they try to destroy it in Austria at the moment at a very, very fast and dynamic speed, the right-wing government, from those who are destroying our European welfare systems, a system we, Social Democrats, have always been fighting for. And we have to save it from those who continuously ignore scientific proof, continuously ignore scientific facts and figures, and deny, for example, climate change and other scientific knowledge. And you know as much as I know that the conservatives, the populists, the right-wing demagogues, they want to dismantle, they want to remodel our whole system, our European way of life to their own needs. And one should not underestimate how much they want to undermine European values, how much they want to question our European understanding of democracy, solidarity, freedom, fairness. And this is an experience I'm making every day in Austria, facing this right-wing government since 15 months. Yes, it's time, and I tell you it's high time, to draw a thick, red, clear line now. Because, friends, who but us makes sure that elderly can live in dignity and care? And who but us makes sure that our kids are getting equal chances for proper education? And who but us fights for affordable living and homes? And who but us fights for labor rights and social security? And who but us fights for making digitalization not a threat for our people, but an opportunity for a better life for all? And it is us who fight for a fair contribution, a contribution of the online giants, Google, Facebook, Amazon, Alphabet, and all the others. It was about a week ago when the British Guardian titled that Amazon made $11.2 million profit in 2018. $11.2 billion. And they paid no federal tax. Undoubtedly, that this is organized tax avoidance. And this is the biggest obstacle, I tell you, to an equal and fair distribution of wealth at the moment. And let me tell you, something is wrong with our system. We have to change this. And we have to get the balance right soon, because the others won't do it. Not the conservatives, not the liberals, and for sure not the far-right demagogues. So we know that we are committed to fight for justice in these increasingly challenging times for Europe. We are the ones who stand for more investments, and you have mentioned it, Stefan, into the future of our societies and ending the redistribution from the bottom to the top, which has happened for the last years. We are the ones standing for more democracy in Europe, more human rights, inside and outside our continent, for more economic growth, where everybody is able to contribute and everybody is able to benefit from the economic growth. Amigas, amigos, my friends and fellows, we all love Europe, and we certainly all want to make Europe better, want to make it stronger, want to make it brighter. And we have to remind all our people that Europe, from its beginning, was and still is the biggest promise for a peaceful and prosperous future, for a strong Europe for our people. And all the best, Pedro. You will rock the boat in April. I know it.
Grande, grande, grande.
Que es importante al menos para mí. Toda la noche estuve sin dormir porque una frase de tu boca quiero escuchar. Dime que me quieres dar. Dime que me quieres. Necesito saber si tú me quieres de verdad como ayer. Aunque parezca tonto, voy a pedirte que me lo repitas una vez y otra vez. Dime que me quieres dar. Dime que me quieres. Ahora estoy triste y necesito escucharme. Démelo al oído. Mi corazón, te quiero decir que es importante pero para mí. Dímelo al oído una vez y otra vez. Dime que me quieres. Dime que me quieres. Dime que me quieres. Y dime, dime, dime.
Thanks a lot, Alejo and band. It's your applause. Thanks. So I will come now to some very simple, important, and decisive questions. Before I do that, what do you think who is organizing this Congress? Who make everything happen here? It's our wonderful host, PSOE, under the leadership of Pedro Sanchez. Thanks for that. Together with the team of the PES under the leadership of Sergei Stanishev. Thank you, Sergei. And Sita is showing to me, are you ready with your voting cards? Do we have that? Yeah? I see some. I see many. So the first question to you, conference and delegates, is, will we adopt together the manifesto of the PS and back our common candidate Franz Timmermans? Yes or no? I'm in favor of yes. Thanks a lot. Thank you very much. And I have one question. Thanks, Franz. I will come to back you. What do you think is better for Spain? A conservative, right-wing government of the past, led by PP, or a socialist, progressive government of the future, led by Pedro Sanchez? Well done, well done. And final question, what do you think is better for Europe? A conservative president of the Commission called Manfred Weber from Bavaria, or a socialist president called Franz Timmermans from Europe? And therefore, I have one request. Franz is coming from the left, that's good. So, the floor is yours. Thanks a lot.
Compañeras, compañeros, aunque mi
Dear comrades, even though my Spanish is not perfect, I would nonetheless talk to Spanish delegates so that the message of Social Democrats will be clear. What's at stake is Europe. And I'm not exaggerating here. It's a reality, it's a fact. The last thing our children deserve is to have no one left to defend such important conquests that were so hard to get. These upcoming elections are the first one where millennials will be able to vote. For the first time, they'll be able to choose the kind of Europe they want. I really have a lot of trust in this generation because it is my children's generation. And we need to offer them a Europe of all and for all, a Europe which is progressive.
We are fighting for the soul of Europe. So much has been said already today, so eloquently, about the many things we will have to do and the many plans we have. And I'm so proud to be able to go into the electoral campaign with this manifesto, which brings a sense of urgency, of pride, and of optimism to a continent that desperately needs it. But I want to start with a small story about somebody who sadly passed away a few days ago. She was 93 years old. Her name was Frida Menko. She was born in Amsterdam in 1925. As a young girl, when she played in the streets, she had a playmate called Anne Frank, lived around the corner. Frida was also Jewish, so with the family Frank, also her family was deported to Auschwitz. You know what happened to the Frank sisters? Frida survived because her mother was able to give her bread when she was in the hospital in Auschwitz on a daily basis, the only reason why she survived. Frida spent the rest of her life after the war talking about her experience to several generations of young Dutch people, explaining why this hatred should never come back to our continent. We are now in a time when people like Frida are slowly passing away, and we have no more first witness experience of the Holocaust. At the same time, it saddens me to see that in her final years, Frida experienced a rise of anti-Semitism again in Europe. I make a pledge to Frida and her legacy, and I make a pledge to every single one of you. I will keep fighting tooth and nail against anti-Semites and anti-Semitism. This is our duty. If our Jewish sisters and brothers do not feel safe in Europe, there is no Europe. This is our oldest and darkest angel. Whenever we are insecure, anti-Semitism is on the rise. Anti-Semitism is bad wherever it comes from, whether it's from the political extremes, whether it's from religious idiocy, or whether it's the new anti-Semitism hiding behind anti-Zionism. It is bad, and we as socialists will say no to it. I'm glad that many of those who spoke today spoke about a new social contract. We need that. But we should also never forget that who actually made the first social contracts? Where were they born? They were born in the socialist movement. They were born in the labor movement. They were born thanks to the trade unions. And in addition to everything that was said about the social contract here today, I would like to say two things. First of all, I pledge a strong alliance with Europe's trade unions. I strongly believe we need to bring back the strength of collective bargaining, and we should do that at a European level. And we should also make sure that we get decent pay for decent work, that we make sure that this idea that we could compete on low wages is finally left behind us. And this can only happen if we have a fair taxation system. No longer can we have the situation in Europe that multinationals make billions of euros of profit and pay €0 taxes. Not acceptable. It will stop when I'm President of the Commission. We should not underestimate the incredible challenge we face because of the fourth industrial revolution, but also because the planet is reaching the limits of what it can carry. What is our movement about? What is the origin of socialism? Why did we come up with this brilliant idea? Because there was a lack of fairness. The social movement is about redistribution. And usually it was about redistribution of labor, redistribution of capital, because we thought the world was limitless and could endlessly provide for everyone. Now we need to talk about redistribution of limited resources of the world. We need to make sure that we don't end the resources of the world, that we reuse them, that we go to a circular economy. And this is not just an issue of fairness. It's an issue of war and peace. I do not want to see the generation of my children involved in wars over water, in wars over precious materials, in wars over other issues because there is a shortage, in wars over clean air. And this is an essential issue for social democracy, because the people we represent do not have the luxury to go elsewhere if the conditions where they live become unlivable because they suffocate because of bad air quality. They cannot afford to buy a condominium in St. Moritz or somewhere else. They live where they live, and we should guarantee that they live there without becoming sick because of the bad quality of the air or the water or the other environments. So never let anybody tell you that changing our society into a sustainable society is a luxury. No, it's essential. And don't let people tell you that this is something for the rich. No, the rich will always find a way out. People we represent can't if we don't stand by them, and we will leave no one behind. I want to pick up one issue that as yet was not discussed, and for me is very important. Everywhere I go in Europe, I speak to young people, I speak to elderly people, and all of us in between. Everybody raises with me the issue of housing. There is an incredible shortage of affordable housing in Europe. It is preventing young people from building up their lives with their families. It is preventing older people from moving to housing that is fitting for their generation. It is a scandal. If I'm President of the Commission, I would start an alliance with cities and towns all over Europe, and I would say, if you, when you have new building projects, if you allocate a substantial percentage of that to social housing, Europe will support you through structural funds. Housing, decent jobs, youth guarantee needs to be made much bigger. Children need to get more support. Indeed, it is a scandal that 1 out of 4 of our children goes to school hungry, doesn't feel happy, doesn't see a future. A challenge to all of you, wherever you're from. When you go home, just once go to a school where people say these children don't have many opportunities. Go to those schools. Just take an afternoon off. Do me that favor. And there's one question I would like you to ask these children. What do you dream about? What would you like to be? I always ask that question. And you know what the most chilling thing is? Too often, the children have never been asked in their lives what they dream about. This is something we should change. This is something that is part of our legacy. This is something that is essential for our future. Let our children dream again. The issue of migration was raised, obviously, because it's one of the most important topics we will be facing now and in the future. I want to add one element to that debate. Just as we understood after the Second World War that crossing the Rhine and establishing a partnership between France and Germany, a partnership that would create bonds that could never be broken, was our destiny. Just as we understood after 1989 that crossing the Elbe and making sure that a partnership would be forged between East and West that could never be broken again. I believe that our task today and that of next generations is to forge an equal partnership with our sister continent on the other side of the Mediterranean, which is Africa. All too often in Europe, people talk about the problems of Africa. I would like us to talk about the potential of Africa. Look at the force of the young people. Look at this incredible force of nature that are the young generations in Africa. And isn't it sad that they would take the risk of drowning in the Mediterranean because this force can find no outlet in Africa itself? Should we not giving them an outlet for their force in Africa? Yes, my friends, I believe that is also our duty. Because every person drowning in the Mediterranean is another scar on Europe's soul. And a soul can only take so many scars before it falters and fails. We cannot, on the one hand, say we attach much value to our fundamental values and at the same time say, but let them drown in the Mediterranean. This is simply unacceptable. So a sustainable solution needs to be found. Absolutely not saying everybody should be able to come to Europe who wants, but we need to create better opportunity so that people don't feel the need to risk their lives in the hands of horrible smugglers to come to Europe. This is our collective duty. I love to take this message to our people. I think many of our governments in the European Union in the last couple of years, in Sweden, in Romania, in Spain, in Portugal, have contributed, and now with the recent proposals also Andrea has made in Germany, really you see immediately if the social democracy embraces a better social future, the people reward that. You've seen in the countries I've mentioned, pensions going up, salaries going up, minimum wages going up. This is what we do when we are in government. We do this in Sweden, we do this in Romania, we do this in Spain, we do this in Portugal, and we do this in Germany and all the other places we can have an influence. But if we are the party that speaks most about our values, if we are the party that criticizes others when they are breaking down the rule of law, when they are curtailing the freedom of the press, when they are putting judges under control, when they are stopping fighting corruption, we should also speak in plain language if we see problems like that in our own family. This is our duty. We cannot avoid that discussion. And this is a message that was clearly passed yesterday also by us three, Sergei, Udo and myself, to Liviu Dragnea when we met. We said, Liviu, if you want to be part of this family, fundamental values are to be observed and respected, and Liviu said he would. We will have a discussion about this in the coming days and weeks, but we cannot compromise on that. This is a red line for our movement. This is a red line for Europe. Because I have seen that Romania has become a society vibrant, open, a society where the fight against corruption has been extremely successful over the last years, a society where we have free media, a society where the judiciary can work in independent ways. This cannot be changed. We shouldn't go back there, because I've just been in Hungary. I've seen what happens if you go back there. In Hungary, a man has chained a full population to their fears. They are chained to their fears, and therefore they don't see the hope. They don't see Europe. They don't see that we're in this together. They believe they are left alone. They believe they have enemies everywhere. And let me be, in my final words, very clear. I say to Robert Biedron, you're right, spring is coming. When I see school children all over Europe spontaneously going into the streets because they want us to do something about climate change, then I see spring is coming. When I see women everywhere in Europe standing up for their rights in the Me Too movement, I see spring is coming. And let me promise to the women that are so courageous to speak out. When I'm President of the Commission, I'll put a legislative proposal on the table to have very firm and hard action to ban gender-based violence. Nonsense. It's nonsense to want to talk about the Istanbul Convention as a danger to our society. We will go beyond that. We will put European legislation to make sure that gender-based violence is banned out of our societies. And by the end of the Commission I lead, the gender pay gap will be gone, will be zero. By the end of the Commission I lead, men and women will get exactly the same pay for exactly the same job, and we will put that into legislation. I leave you with this message. Spring is coming. I see it in Portugal. I see it in Sweden. I see it in this country. I see it in the new hope in Germany. I see it in Polish society that is far more resilient than Polish society is given credit for. I see it in the hearts of our friends fighting for these rights all over Europe. And I see it in one man who holds the key to a progressive future of Europe and who needs to win the elections on the 28th of April. This man is Pedro Sanchez. Come on. I mean, in the eternal words of my hero, Bruce Springsteen, is anybody alive out there? Is anybody alive out there? Is anybody alive out there? And now you're all going to join me in saying, Presidente.
Buenas tardes.
Good afternoon, brothers and sisters. Good afternoon, thank you. I'm happy to welcome all of you. Madrid welcomes you. Welcome to Madrid. Welcome to Spain. Spain, which is a country that is open, optimistic, that looks to Europe. Welcome to the social democratic family. Welcome, Antonio, Stanishev, Pamela. Welcome, all of you, colleagues, brothers and sisters.
Presidente de la Comisión Europea, Frans Timmermans.
So, welcome also to the next president, Frans Timmermans. He's going to do a great job. Now, this party that is your host now, in 2019, commemorates its 140 years of existence and history. 140 years at the service of prosperity, progress, the consecution of rights in our country, and for this past year, we have witnessed, during this past year, we've witnessed many, many things. Now, the media, the conservatives would say, oh, you've got no chance whatsoever. The future is not yours. And what did we do? What did we say? We said no. We did not buckle under. We fought. We assumed our responsibility, and we put an end to a government that spoke for the past. In June last year, June 2018, there was a ray of hope walking into the Moncloa Palace. The past walked out of Moncloa, the future walked in. A future that is upheld by this government. This government was more keen to defend the general interest of Spaniards, and the government that left was a government that was focusing on defending its corruption court cases. We socialists, for 9 months now, have proven, after May last year, when the motion of no confidence was passed, that another Spain was possible. And I am convinced that on April 28, we Spaniards will achieve that change that we began to lead last year. Which is why these elections of April 28 are more than just any election. They are not elections that are the same as always. No, these are elections that are going to allow us to decide the model of a society we want. A Spain that is forward-looking, a Spain that looks to the back, a Spain where we all fit, or a Spain where only a handful from the Plaza de Colón find the space. Which is why we need to be optimistic, and we need to speak out to the people and say, get out there on April 28. On April 28th, not only Spain of the left, not only Spain of progress, no, sensible, moderate Spain. A Spain, Spaniards that want to look to the future and not step back for decades, which is what the right recommends. We at the PSOE have built an organization which really is synonymous with the achievement of rights, which is why it's surprising that there are so-called liberal parties who establish a cordon sanitaire around the Socialist Party. I have a proposal, and here we are with the Social Democrats. Let's no longer say that those who are not liberals are liberals. Really, because liberals in Europe defend liberties, freedoms. Liberals in Europe do not sign any kind of an agreement with the far right. But what do the purported liberals do here in Spain? Well, they reach agreements with those who would abuse women to reach power. Which is why, when they say that they want to establish this cordon sanitaire, around what? Around those who got universal free medical care? Those who put an end to ETA and terrorism in the Basque Country? Those who got legislation that guarantee equal rights between men and women? They want to cordon off those who, thanks to the mobilization of millions of Spaniards, made this country a better one? I have to say, at the end of the day, those who cordon off the Socialist Party are actually cordoning off the organization that set forth legislation that fights inequality and sexual harassment, that has truly done its utmost to achieve that equality. Those who whitewash, those who want to draft lists of civil servants who fight against sexual violence in Andalusia. And what's worse is what we just learned about today in the media. They are cordoning the Socialist Party, and they are establishing a league with the far right because they have no other option, because they are void of principles, full of opportunism. Yes, indeed. Yes, there is so very much at stake. A lot is at stake on April 28. We need to decide what social model, what Spain we want. We know what Spain it is that they want. Mr. Casado said so the other day, talking about women again. France, you know what the leader of the opposition said? The leader of the opposition, he said that in order to be able to pay for the pensions, we should once and for all do away with abortion. In other words, pensions that are ours by right will only be achievable if women make a sacrifice. So I'm asking, are we talking about first and third class citizens here? Is that the kind of a united Spain they want? And thus, my friends, all of us together, react. When they insult women, when they insult me, you saw that flood, that wave of insults addressed at me by the leader of the opposition. Well, he's actually insulting because he has no arguments to clearly oppose the actions undertaken by this government. And thus, it is very important that on upcoming April 28, Spaniards turned their backs to lies and to the unpleasant mode of this right, which is chock full of anachronisms, more anachronisms than ideas, I dare say. Three brands, but only one objective, which is turning the country looking to its past. That's not what we're doing. We're looking at the future. We're looking at achieving the best possible future for all Spaniards. We said this before. You've heard us often enough. You've heard all socialist leaders say and repeat to a very good degree that our social achievements over the past 40 years really bear the stamp of the Socialist Party. But that's why I said before, we're not talking about parties or anachronisms. No, we're talking about societal models, the country we want. We always used to say, friends all, that, yes, we have healthcare, yes, we have dependency, yes, we have equal rights, yes, minimum wages to be increased. Those are achievements that are at the feet of socialist governments. And we actually told the People's Party that they were always late. Same-sex marriage, they were late, but they made it. Abortion, they were late, but they made it. The problem is, this new PP, they're not going to make it at all. They don't want to make it. They want to turn back the clock. They want to stop now and look towards the past, and that we will not allow for that to happen. For 9 months, we've done more for social justice than the 7 previous years. With the support of Ciudadanos, the People's Party is to blame. We've done much more to transform our country than they have, much, much more. In 9 months, what have we done? We have established the basics, the foundations for the major change, that fantastic social contract which is necessary in Spain and in Europe. And, by the way, in the autonomous regions, in the municipalities, we have leaders from the different parts of the country. A round of applause. We're going to win on April 26th, thanks to you in the municipalities and in the comunidades autónomas. Thank you so much for being with us today.
¿Qué dijimos?
What did we say? Yes, we need those sea changes. Call for the contribution of each and every one of the public institutions, from the front line to the highest one, so from the countertop at local city halls to Europe. What we have done over the past 9 months, in terms of our actions as a government, well, we have bolstered the educational system in our country, which is the first pillar of the social contract that Spain needs. We have cut back on the cutbacks. This week, we approved at Congress the end of educational cutbacks in our system.
Hemos impulsado.
We have encouraged vocational training. We have fostered grants for families with less incomes. We have fostered active employment opportunities because we need to, of course, ensure that there is education available to all from 0 to 3, vocational training, and, of course, universities. That's what we need to do. But we further need to ensure that all employees, men and women, and let me not forget the long-term unemployed, my generation, the over 45-year-olds, we are going to make economic resources available so that those policies guarantee the opportunities they deserve. And when we talk about education and training and skilling, we're going to be ensuring that there is equal right to men and women so that there be more women scientists, which we need to guarantee in this changing paradigm.
El otro día,
The other day, I talked with the leader of the Partido Popular, and I told him that it was a shame that all they do is insult and lie. Mr. Casado says that as of the socialists being in power, some 6,000 jobs are lost every day. And what I have to say to him is, please have your experts provide you with updated information, because we have created over 1,500 jobs every day thanks to the Socialist Party's economic and job-related policies. Not only have more jobs been created, what's more indefinite contracts have been signed thanks to the plan which was approved by the Socialist Party to fight exploitation and to make our labor market more decent. So now we have 100,000 more indefinite contracts, thanks to the actions carried out by the government and thanks also to the labor inspectors at an autonomous region level. And remember, we have hiked minimum wages. France said it, and all of our brothers and sisters who took the floor before agreed. We have grown by 22% the basic wages, the minimum wages. This is the highest increase as of 1977 in our country. And do you know, now that we talk about equal rights between men and women in the labor market, well, 70% of the persons who have benefited from that are women who work hard in this country. And furthermore, we have done it, we have achieved this without the backing, without the understanding of the People's Party or of Ciudadanos who were in opposition to a measure that makes our society a more decent society. This upcoming Friday, in preparation for that demonstration, because yes, we're going to take to the streets of every city in our country on March 8th. March 8th, I want to see every single one of you on the streets defending equal rights for men and women. But what I wanted to say, furthermore, is that as a consequence of the filibusterism and of the parliamentary blockage of the People's Party and of Ciudadanos, we have not been able to complete that bill regarding equal rights and the pay gap. But as I said, Spain cannot afford to stop for a second. The government is going to work until the final day of the legislature before the elections on April 28th. So next Friday, we're going to be approving via a royal decree laws and legislations that are going to foster equal rights and equal pay for men and women. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed, we have bolstered the welfare state. I said so before. We have cut back on the educational cutbacks. We guarantee universal medical coverage. Andres, as you rightly pointed out, as leader of Save the Children in Spain, really decisively contributing to that infamous child's poverty. We need to have an alliance between public and private entities to shrink that unacceptable percentage, the number of children who suffer the effects of poverty, the ravages of poverty in our country. And new rights. We have, for instance, acknowledged the right to 100,000 persons who did not have the right to vote. They had special needs. And thanks to the Socialist Party in Madrid and then soon in Parliament, that right will be recognized. And the environment. You know, yesterday at the Council of Ministers, we decided to approve the bill to fight climate change and pass also the climate and energy plan, because we are a socialist government. We are progressive. We are a government that, as Franz said, is solidary to the backbone. Solidariness which must exist vis-a-vis those generations that now exist, because especially in that package of energy and climate, we include a fair transition for those boroughs or regions where that change of paradigm will need the support and backing and solidarity of the state and public entities. But especially, we need to remember about solidarity with future generations, our children, our children's children, those persons who are not even born but who have the same right as we do to breathe good quality air and to enjoy life on a planet that is also of good quality. So France, as upcoming president, I assure you, you are going to have with you, backing you, the government of Spain to face that difficult challenge, which is the climate and the environment. So my good friends all, whatever happens on April 28 is very important. Antonio said so before, not only because we need to implement public policies here in Spain that are linked with progress and prosperity. The difference between the left and the right, what is it in the 21st century, I ask? Well, all ideologies talk about progress and development. They all defend ongoing growth. But the difference between left and right, between those who are progressive and those who are conservative, is that conservative want progress for just a few at the expense of the majority. But we want progress for everyone. We are there to back everyone. And this is why we have a social contract which sets the basics here in Spain that has to do with education and the environment and the labor market, with entrepreneurship, sustainability, if you will, of our welfare state, and, of course, equality between men and women. I've said on occasion, I don't know what's wrong with the right, their thing with women. What is wrong with them? What is their take on women? Some defend surrogate wombs. Others defend no abortion. Others make gender issues banal. Let me assure you that if there is anybody in power who is a socialist, there will be politicians who will defend equality for men and women. It's a commitment, now and always. And furthermore, don't you think it's nonsensical? Don't you think it's clumsy from an electoral point of view? I mean, imagine, step into the shoes. Electorally speaking, does it make sense to talk about women and in the century of women? If you want women out of politics, well, they will soon and very shortly outcast from politics themselves, because there's a lot of men, many men, and most women who won't put up with that. So, my friends, on April 28, we have to decide what Spain do we want. And in May, we will talk about what cities, what towns, what countries, what Europe we want. So please, let's mobilize, let's all of us mobilize, because we are many more who want to evolve than those who want to devolve. We need all of us to join forces. Each vote will be for progress, and abstention will have us returning to a Spain from 40 years back, a Spain we do not want to return to.
gracias Pedro. Han apoyado la música siempre, ahora nosotros apoyamos aquí. Salí de casa con la sonrisa puesta, hoy me he levantado contento de verdad. El sol de la mañana brilla en mi cara, una brisa fresca me ayuda a despertar. Y digo, la ciudad parece mi amiga, hoy es mi día y nadie me lo va a arruinar. Los chicos de la esquina ríen con picardía, yo sé que es lo que quieren y se los voy a dar. Y digo, Santa, Santa conmigo, digo, Santa, Santa, Santa conmigo, y voy por mi camino sin preocupación, pasa la gente y me mira mal, pero no me importa, a mí me da lo mismo. Hoy estoy alegre y tengo ganas de saltar y digo, Santa, Santa conmigo, digo, Santa, Santa, Santa conmigo, La, la,
Thank you.
Muchas gracias and hasta luego.
Nos vemos luego.
Hello, very well. Yes.
So, finally, you
That's right. Yes, you're wonderful. Yes.
It's not